Welcome to our Itty Bitty Webinar today, where we're talking about satiric heroes.
And today we have Blake Castleman here. And he is a screenwriter and a producer and a director. And he's got stuff out there. You want to definitely check him out. And we've had the opportunity to talk story code, which is always awesome.
Yeah. And today
Yeah.
is all heroes, satiric heroes. And satires are kind of a large body of kinds and types of stories. We have your dark satires with anti-heroes. You have comedic satires with rogue heroes, but we also have the farces, the romantic farces, those silly, very busy, lots of doors slamming movies. They all fit into satire because they all carry the same basic pattern of wins and losses. But in particular, we're going to talk about the heroes that come with those satires. And one thing before we get started is just to let you know that all of them have a few things in common. And the main thing is that satiric heroes are in it for themselves. They are self-serving instead of your traditional self-sacrificing hero that might come in a drama. So Amy's got our first kind, and we'll turn it over to
Yes.
her.
And I really do love these types of heroes because generally, well, let's just go right into it. Rogue heroes, okay? I mean, these guys and girls are absolutely adorable, but we know as we're going into this story, we're in on the joke here. We know that they're a little double dealing, that there's some duality about their character. Take Flynn Rider in Tangled. I mean, he's so adorable, but you're like, he's gonna steal the crown. I mean, is he ever gonna give it back? Oh, you're a little bit worried. And we when he's like that, we look at it. He's a level 2 cognitive developmental. On his level, cognitively is a level 2, which is I'll keep the secret if you keep the secret kind of deal maker. And they kind of go against what we know is correct, but they're kind of fun characters, and we're willing to kind of forgive them. Flynn Rider, we forgive him because you know what? He's the one with the growth arc in that story. Rapunzel doesn't have a growth arc. It is all Flynn Rider, which is amazing. He goes from level 2 to a level 6 self-sacrificing hero, where he will sacrifice his life for her and for her freedom. Not just for her life, but for her freedom. And then we have Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, okay? Heartbreakers is another movie that's a lot like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. We don't talk about that one too much. There's just kind of a little interesting scene there with a statue that's a little embarrassing. But it is, actually I like it better than Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, but it's a little over.
Really? I don't like it at all.
But these guys and girls are, you know, they're fleecing the wealthy. And we're kind of okay because we're thinking, oh, well, these guys they have so much money and they're kind of stupid if they're allowing themselves to get fleeced. But of course, in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, just to give it away, if you've not seen it, plug your ears. But that's when we find out that they were actually fleeced. Jameson and Freddie and the Jackal, who is Janet Colgate, actually gets them. So rogue heroes are just this absolutely fun dynamic, a way that we can kind of roll around in the mud a little bit without getting too dirty. Because, either they get socialized or they get fleeced themselves or there's some sort of comeuppance. But they still win as a rogue, okay? They get away with it. Or, like Flynn Rider he changes. And the system is battered. They kind of take it on the chin, at the witch in Tangled, and our Normbreaker wins, our hero wins, we as audience win, and our system is battered or loses.
Yeah, so another thing that all the satiric heroes have in common is they do win. The satiric heroes win over the system, and they're kind of the bad guys. They're not doing things that are socially acceptable, shall we say. But yet they win, and that means that in satires we have a system that's worse than they are. That system is glitched or is really terrible, and so that system is usually going to be battered or even taken down. So our next kind of satiric hero is an anti-hero. And with all of these kinds of heroes, we like them or don't like them, depending on their level of norm breaking. So if they are just doing a few things and we can like wink, wink, and we're okay with it. But when you get to anti-heroes, you're starting to get into murder, you're starting to get into drug dealing, all sorts of things that are going to start making us feel a lot more uncomfortable. And so and again, their systems that they're up against are usually more serious. Instead of dirty, rotten scoundrels, where you just have empty-headed rich women who don't know any better. We're up against maybe governments. We're up against some very serious. We're up against drug lords. Who knows? So the ways that you know you have an anti-hero is there's also doubling going on in there. They are not as they appear to be. However, we're not always in on that joke. In fact, we're rarely not joking. We're not, it's deadly serious. But we are not in on that like we are with mostly with the rogue heroes. We often are very surprised at the end. So take Mort Rainey and Secret Window. We think he's being tormented by this murderous man, and you find out that he's a split personality, that he is the murderous man. And so some of the ones from TV that we see are Cookie Lion from Empire and Raymond Reddington from The Blacklist. But one of the most famous anti-heroes is Michael Corleone from The Godfather. And he starts off in a system that he's uncomfortable with at first. He really doesn't want to be part of the family business. But by the end of that movie, the final scene, we see him being anointed as the next Don, and he has killed everybody who's gotten in the way, has hurt his family or gotten in the way of their business or their dealings. And that is an anti-hero. They still win. And we become even more battered. We might be a little battered in a rogue hero story if they get a little too beyond our morals and what we're comfortable with. But we are definitely battered in an anti-hero story.
And we're not in on that joke. And this is where, honestly, this is where you get the satiric horrors. This is how you get that horror element with that gotcha at the end, the surprise of who it is or whatever that reveal is. Because we've been kept in the dark throughout the entire story with these anti-heroes.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
very uncomfortable. The system still loses.
Yeah, they win.
They get away with it. Fight Club is another one where you get that.
Mm. Yes. So what's interesting about satires is they're there for a reason. They're not there just to be these ugly, horrible stories. The writers are writing something to poke at us and say, take a look at your systems, take a look at our society. We have problems. And so they're addressing those in a sometimes a rather dark way, but there's usually a message in there for us to consider. And it's more instead of a inspiring message in a drama, it's more like a slap in the face. Wake up and see what's going on.
And I should find out, memorize who this quote is from, but the satirists dirties themselves on their way to their noble purposes. They have a message as much as anybody else. In Secret Window, I mean, that police officer, the sheriff, he's kind of clueless. I mean, if we're really trusting systems like that to protect us, that show is telling us don't trust too much to be protected. I mean,
And it also addresses this idea of no fault divorces. This man's
yes.
mind was shattered by his wife having an affair and leaving him. And pretty much everybody but one of the divorce lawyers treated him like he was stupid. He should just get over it. It's fine. What's your problem? But he was not fine. And I think there's these messages in these films that are very interesting. Well, we have one last kind of hero left, and it's more unusual. It's one that we may not really know very much about.
Because, well, we thought it was a one-off kind of thing. Like, we knew two stories where this happened, but then Don't Look Up came out. And all of a sudden we're going, maybe this is a little bit more prevalent than we thought. This is the idiot hero, okay? This is where, through hubris, through whatever, somebody in power just ignores all the warning signs because and then everybody around them dies, basically. You look at Odysseus in the Cyclops part of the Odyssey. Not, I mean, he's a
Not in
traditional.
the Odyssey. It's actually a satyr play. They found a fragment of a play that is from ancient Greece.
Okay, yes, thank you, thank you.
Sorry.
So in the Cyclops, Odysseus goes and the satyr comes up to him and says, hey, you don't want to deal with my master. Anything you need, I'll get you whatever you need. Just don't go bothering the Cyclops. And Odysseus is like, well, you don't. I'm not going to deal with you. You're just some little goat guy. And he goes right up to Cyclops, and guess who pays the price? All of his men get smashed, battered, eaten, and just it's just a idiot hero. Odysseus still wins, but
It's
everybody
a
else pays
very,
the
yeah.
price.
The Singer plays a very body comedy that takes the Odyssey story and really makes it fun, and it's just very body, and yeah, it's a certain style of kind of like restoration comedy.
In Urinetown, the third act with Hope Gladwell, she leads them all on, and they're all going to be dead. Every single one of them. They're following an idiot hero. And so we're thinking we just know of these two that, we don't know if these stories just didn't survive because they're kind of like roasts. The traditional roast where you throw darts at people across from the fire, or, you have a retirement thing where everybody, tells you everything bad about yourself as you're retiring. They roast you. Then Don't Look Up came out, you guys. And oh my goodness, President Orlean and Isherwell, talk about idiots. I mean, they, and everybody pays the price because they are in a position of power and they lead people astray, and everybody else pays the price for these idiot heroes. It's a very pointed dynamic. It's very interesting. And as you can see, we're always looking with the story code to um, really fine tune these types of dynamics that we find in stories, because if you can identify them, if you can name them, you can now see them in all the works and use them as writers.
And we have since gone on and found quite a handful of them, and I'm sure there's more to be discovered. General Ripper and Dr. Strangelove. I mean,
That's right, that's right.
they're actually all over. They're not as common.
General Ripper, just even he pays the price and loses in that one. Although President Orlean, I think you could argue that Orlean and Isherwell also pay the price.
They look pretty tentative coming off that.
Yeah, I think they're ready to get eaten by the Bronx Rock.
Well, that is a quick introduction and wrap up for our satiric heroes today. And do you guys have any questions before we go?
Yeah.
You talked about the idiot hero, and it seems like you look at these satire sketch comedy shows like Mad TV and Saturday Night Live and so forth, and it seems like that they kind of portray leaders, government leaders, other people that are kind of in the news at that time, current event type of situations, and the impersonations of these people seem to be very broad and kind of present them more in an idiot type of
You know what?
scenario, and I think that's what makes these sketches work so well.
You hit. I now I want to go watch them because I'm thinking back and I'm going 100%. This is maybe where we find more of the idiot heroes.
I,
Because the satirists always dirty themselves onto their noble purposes. What are these sketches doing? They're trying to say, wake up, you people. You're
yeah.
following an idiot hero.
Yeah.
Whoever it
Um,
happens to be. It comes from both sides.
Yeah, and I actually have listed Saturday Night Live as one of the examples of idiot heroes in the book because it is a really great example. Even though they're very short little sketches, they're using that dynamic a lot.
You're talking about the anti-hero and the dark satire. I was thinking of two series that are connected. I'm a big fan of is Breaking Bad with the Walter White character, and Better Call Saul with the Jimmy McGill character.
And they did so good with that because at the very end, he's a self-sacrificing level 6 hero.
Both of them are at the end of both series. Both of them are self-sacrificing, even though their rise to power was very much that anti-hero path.
Well,
Well, and the in both the case of Jimmy and Walter, where they start is not for their own self-interest. At least that's what they're telling themselves. Walter gets into the meth business because he has lung cancer and he wants to raise a certain amount of money so his family can survive after he's gone. Jimmy wants to be a lawyer on the level of his older brother, who he emulates and who he cares for after his brother is dealing with his mental illness. And it's once they reach that point, it seems like the dark path takes over,
mhm.
because they're through circumstance and situation. Jimmy gets rejected by his brother. Walter finds he likes the power of being a drug lord, and that's what takes them down the dark path. It's not where it started, it's where they find themselves kind of in the middle of the journey.
So I'm
And
glad you brought up those examples, Blake, because the story code is all about noticing and learning the basic patterns, things that happen over and over and over again. But where storytelling gets really interesting is when we start blending. So these stories, Breaking Bad is a really great example that we're getting some blends in there. They didn't start off as self-serving, right? So that's a blend. They quickly move into and stay there for quite a while, this classic anti-hero. And then at the end, wow, they have some sort of arc that believably takes us into
yes,
self-sacrificing. And that's about one of the most powerful things you can do right there. You've taken really a reprehensible character and this idea that redemption is available to everyone is irresistible. It's one of the most powerful themes and most common themes that we get in our stories. And so that I would say is all this blending that's going on, and that's where sophisticated storytelling really happens. Is like we want to learn the patterns, but then we also then want to use them to create precisely the type of emotional response that we're looking for.
yeah. And that's what I love about the story code. You can see what's happening. It really gives you that vision and the words to be able to say it.
We just, I don't know, Amy and I just are always fascinated by all of these patterns and how we can apply them in endless ways. Stories are like DNA. You just take those little building blocks and you combine them in endless patterns. So